Hey guys, it's Lori, pharmacist, your friendly pharmacist here, trying to alert you to the scams and the pitfalls and some things you may not be aware of when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry. So earlier tonight I was cruising the computer scene, and this is late for me, but I'm just kind of wide awake. But anyway, this headline caught my eye. Pfizer CEO says people who don't get vaccinated will become weak link that allows the coronavirus to spread. And I really thought to myself, who do you think you are, buddy? Because if you know anything about the pharmaceutical industry, you know that they are convicted felons. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla warned on Tuesday that people who don't take the COVID-19 vaccine will become a weak link that allows the coronavirus to spread. I liked this line. He said Pfizer will only request authorization from the Food and Drug Administration after data shows that its vaccine is safe and effective. After data. Whose data? Their data, right? This vaccine is the mRNA vaccine. Moderna's doing the mRNA. That's new vaccine technology. Pfizer's doing a similar deal. This is the one that's going to encode into mRNA, which is a messenger, which encodes into your DNA, which is going to genetically alter you, okay? They don't know what the outerlying ramifications of this is, and they're touting this as being because it's not traditional vaccine technology using an inactivated virus that we can do this. This is why we can hurry this thing up, right? Okay, well, but what I mainly want to bring to your attention is we've got Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Moderna are the three leading out there, looks like gonna bring a vaccine to market first. 2 out of 3, that's Pfizer and AstraZeneca, are in fact convicted felons and repeat offenders at that. So, you can pull up list of largest pharmaceutical settlements. It pops up on Wikipedia. Pfizer is second in line. This was back in 2009, $2.3 billion. AstraZeneca in 2010, $520 million. AstraZeneca off-label promotion and kickbacks. Okay, that's, like giving financial incentives to doctors. That was over the drug Seroquel. So they violated the False Claims Act. In other words, they're liars. Pfizer off-label promotion and kickbacks on 4 different drugs: Vextra, Geodon, Zyvox, and Lyrica. If you just Google AstraZeneca lawsuits, Pfizer lawsuits, that was the most expensive one. That was in the list of the most expensive, but they actually have rap sheets that are continuing. For instance, I believe it's Pfizer is still, no, AstraZeneca agrees to settle whistleblower lawsuit for $7.9 million because of kickbacks. And actually people that were working for them were the ones that blew the whistle on that. In other words, they're not just one-time offenders. They keep going and going. And these are the people that not only are going to bring a new vaccine to market with a new technology, that are going to have no liability, I might add, okay? But they are, they're current makers of current vaccines that we're injecting in ourselves and our children. Moderna, while they have not been convicted felons yet, there's a reason for that. They've never brought a drug to market to date, and they've never brought a vaccine to market. So that's what you got going on. And now Moderna, of course, is hugely being financed by yours truly, Bill Gates. I prefer to call him Kill Gates. This headline: Bill Gates is able and willing to lose big money funding factories for COVID-19 vaccines. And you know, we know that the AstraZeneca trials have been halted because this woman experienced transverse myelitis. She was hospitalized. There's a headline saying that she may go home, I guess, today. But let me read what transverse myelitis is. It's a serious condition involving inflammation of the spinal cord that can cause muscle weakness, paralysis, pain, and bladder problems. Vaccines have triggered cases of transverse myelitis, although it can also be triggered by viral infections or when you inject a virus into someone, right? I'm wondering who's going to pay her medical bills, who's paying for whatever she had to go through in the hospital, how long she's actually been in the hospital, and what medical bills she's going to have here on out, and who's going to be paying those. You know, I don't know how these trials work. Did she sign a waiver saying that they're abdicated, or are they going to be on the hook for her medical bills? Hard to say. It also has now come out that this is the second time that AstraZeneca has halted this trial. It was also halted. There was another case of this transverse myelitis, and someone who said was later diagnosed with neurological problems that were not related to the vaccine, or so they say. But anyway, very concerning, very concerning. So this AstraZeneca vaccine, it says, was co-invented by the University of Oxford and is a spin-out company, Vaccitech. It uses a replication deficient, chimpanzee viral vector based on a weakened version of a common cold virus, adenovirus, that causes infections in chimpanzees and contains the genetic material of the SARS-CoV-2 virus spike protein. All right, so you know, you got a little chimpanzee injected into you there if you are signed up for the AstraZeneca trial. You know, Fauci said that generally the adverse event is related to something else, not the vaccine, but those running the trial can't presume that. Also want to bring into the fact the placebo. It was confirmed that this woman who had the transverse myelitis that halted the trial, she was injected with the actual vaccine and not the placebo. What is the placebo? Well, in the AstraZeneca trial, it is a meningitis vaccine. So it's not actually a true placebo. It's another vaccine that has the potential to cause side effects, transverse myelitis. So this is another thing I think people need to be really aware of. You know, the whole, I got to thinking about, what does the Bible have to say about a reputation? And, you know, it says in Matthew 7:17, and this is Jesus speaking, "Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit." So if you're a convicted felon and you're out there and you're producing vaccines and drugs for people and you're violating False Claims Act, meaning you're lying, you're giving kickbacks to doctors and God only knows who else in order to get your product sold, your clinical trials are by you. So when this guy says, when the data shows that it's going to be safe and effective, that's their data, not an independent, somebody that doesn't have financial ties is not the one producing the data. It's the people that are going to gain the money on the vaccine. And so you got a tree that's producing bad fruit. And it goes on to say in 18, "A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit." So does the AstraZeneca, Pfizer, the pharmaceutical industry even have the potential to bear good fruit when in fact they consistently bear bad fruit? I'm thinking not. You know, there's a big thing going on. I listened to Trump's his address today to the nation, and I was going to actually play clips of it, but I was concerned because he really doesn't seem to have a clue when it comes to vaccines. And, you know, there's this big thing about whether, you know, the vaccine is going to be safe because the Trump administration is pushing it to be available before the election. And like that should be your determining factor. Did the vaccine come out before the election? If not, such a percentage of people aren't going to get it, but if it comes out afterward, they're going to get it. Well, here's the deal. The pharmaceutical industry was convicted felons before the election and after the election. So it's the same bunch bringing it to trial and presenting their data to the FDA. So to me, the election, no election, is really neither here nor there because it's the same bunch bringing it to trial. And again, I drew this up. Sorry, it's written backwards for you guys. COVID-19 stats. Again, that's the famous circle. This is representation of the world. We've got right now deaths globally related to the coronavirus. Or COVID-19, supposedly, is 0.01%. That's going to represent the tiny dot there globally. And 0.3% of the population, that's the 28 million cases. Not discussing the 20 million. He said before he was elected he'd look into vaccines. Yeah, I know. We'll talk about that. Give me just a minute. 0.3% of the population has even been tested positive. I mean, I'd love to know the percentage of these that were asymptomatic because it's insanity. It's a huge percent. And like 20 million have recovered. We're at 28. So really only 8 million cases are out there globally that are even in limbo. Why am I bringing this up? Because if you do your research on all the diseases we vaccinate for in the U.S., this right here is the prototype of the percentage of people that are affected and that die, okay? And because what does the pharmaceutical industry do? It blows everything up to convince you that you need their vaccine, that you need their product. Your children are going to die. You know, the doctors, the pharmacists, me, the nurses, we're all educated by the pharmaceutical industry unless we go elsewhere and start doing some outside research. And they capitalize on you and your trust in them and convince you that you need this. So what are we going to do? We're going to vaccinate all these people with experimental vaccines in the case of COVID that haven't ever been used before. These technologies have never been used, making the entire world a scientific experiment. So I don't want to be one before the election or after the election. You know, I'll never get another vaccine as long as I live. I've never gotten a flu shot. I saw the toxins in them a long time ago. I was like, not me, not this kid. Let's see. Trump said before he was elected he'd look into vaccines. I know. And I pray that. And, you know, there's a Biden campaign lays out standards for coronavirus vaccine transparency. That was another headline that came across today. I was like, good luck with that, buddy. Vaccine transparency. I mean, the people that are bringing the vaccine to market are doing the trials. We're trusting them. You know, they come across and say, oh, this whole halting a trial is not unprecedented. I'd really like some examples out there of when they've halted trials before of vaccines that we're commonly injecting into our children. Because if you look at the vaccine package inserts and you look at how long they observed, it's like it can be 3 days, it can be 4 days, it could be a week, it could be 14 days, it could be 30 days, and it'll list serious adverse events. Now, a serious adverse event means that somebody was hospitalized, okay? It's not just like they got a little red at the injection site and ran a little fever. It's serious means there was intervention involved, okay? And yet these serious events are listed right there in all the package inserts of the things that are being injected into our children, the flu shot, etc. So, I mean, I think the reason they made such a big deal of this is they're trying to make it look like, oh, we're all about safety, we're all about this, we're all about that. Whereas normally this probably would have been a bump in the road. Nobody would have even known anything about it. Well, I don't know about being a scientist. I'm a researcher, I'll tell you that. And I appreciate that, Jenny. My thing is, I can't make a decision for you, and I wouldn't want to, but I do want you to know all the facts. The facts, ma'am, just the facts. Because when you realize that these companies are convicted felons, and, this guy makes headlines by saying, should go ahead and read the rest of what he said, that if people don't get the COVID, the vaccine, that, they're going to be a weak link, and it's going to be the spread of the virus. It's going to contribute to the spread of the virus. Well, newsflash, son, if you just look at what's going on with this thing statistically, there ain't a whole lot of spread. Or if it is spreading, nobody knows they've got it, right? So what is the big deal? There is no big deal. But this is what pharma does in order to sell product. Just trying to see. I also saw in Pfizer one of their legal issues involves Effexor and Zoloft. When I was looking through this, so apparently they decided somewhere along the way it was going to be a great idea to give pregnant women Zoloft, an antidepressant. And as a result, they suffered, the most serious of the allegations are that Pfizer actively promoted the use of Zoloft to pregnant women despite knowledge of birth defects from their research. Same with Effexor. There were serious side effects. There were suicidal thoughts and behavior were issues. It's no longer recommended for children or for teenagers. There's a black box warning. And yet all these things, see, guys, are after the fact. These are after the fact. These are fallouts. And yet, you hear the famous line, correlation doesn't equal causation. Which is, and frankly, it's a bullshit line. Because it's designed to shut your butt up. Because what it really means is correlation doesn't equal causation until enough damage is done that it's glaring out there and they can no longer deny it. That means enough people are harmed. When is the flattening of the curve going to happen? You really look statistically, there was never much of a curve. There's this whole thing has affected so small a percentage of the population. But to listen to mainstream media, you'd think, my gosh, every third person was either, on their back with coronavirus or, on their way to the hospital. And it's just not the case. It's lies. So there's never, the little bit of the curve there was still affected. Back to my diagram here, that little dot, we're at 0.3% of the population. And this is pretty much what's going on in the U.S. too. I just like it globally because everybody has been affected by this. And so I based it off the global that I made, but it's not any different for the U.S. So Yeah, it is psychological warfare. Agree about cause of it. Oh, hi, Shelly. How are you? So, yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping on. It's late, but I just decided I'm going to go for it while my brain is working. Just to go on to say in this article with Mr. Weak Link, because, you know, his company's convicted felons, we're supposed to believe what he has to say. Vaccine hesitantly was already a problem in the United States, but fear due to the pandemic and confusing communication from the Trump administration on vaccine development. Can you say not taking responsibility? How about y'all are liars? Has exacerbated opposition to a vaccine and could jeopardize a COVID-19 vaccine's impact. Infectious disease experts and scientists say. You know what I say about their experts, they're doofuses. But anyway, jeopardizing the COVID-19 vaccine's impact, they're worried about cha-ching, cha-ching. Because, again, statistically, just hadn't affected enough people. And that's the bottom line. Let's see, I'm trying to see, was there anything else I wanted to go over? I think that pretty much covers it. Just pointing out the obvious that most people are not aware of and that you're certainly not going to hear on mainstream media. And again, these are experimental vaccines, so whoever does get them is being experimented on, and they have no liability. So the company is going to have no liability. I don't know. I'm going to take my chances. Thank you very much. That's my 2 cents worth. But anyway. So, yes, they wanted to give me an antidepressant while I was pregnant. I changed doctors. Oh my gosh. Thank God. I don't know. You know, I was talking to a couple of guys today that were coming through my line, and both of them were wide awake. The whole discussion started with masks because they weren't wearing theirs, and I had mine pulled down to here, and they asked me if I was sick of this whole thing, and I said, oh my God, do not even get me started. But, you know, we were talking about, because one of them had a pregnant wife and how they'd recommended vaccines for her, and, you know, wanted to put her on, something when she got sick. He couldn't remember the name of it, but I said, let me tell you something. When I was pregnant in the 90s, the only thing they authorized you to take was Tylenol. That was it. And that was even in very small quantities. You weren't supposed to take nothing. And now it's gone into, we're going to vaccinate pregnant women. We're going to give them drugs. I mean, I mean, it's awful. And you have to be so awake to what is going on, because they just don't care. They don't care. It's all about the bottom line. Yeah, I heard that, Lisa. Heard that. But anyway, well, thank you guys. Please share this. I want people to know. I want them to be awake. I want them to be aware of what the scripture says, and that trees that are bearing bad fruit, like the pharmaceutical industry, aren't going to wake up tomorrow and start bearing good fruit. And to me, again, this whole COVID thing has put the vaccine process out there for everybody to see. It's put statistically, because hopefully people that can do basic math can see that statistically this is not hardly affecting a significant amount to vaccinate the whole world, to shut down the world, to ruin people's lives, to keep children out of school, and all the other shenanigans, to wear masks and all the other shenanigans. It's all an agenda. So, and the pharmaceutical industry wins, and y'all lose. If you come up with a different scenario, you know, let me know, but that's the way I see it. All right, guys, have a great night. Love you, and we'll talk soon.